It's pretty special. Art Blakey. Art Blakey. Art Blakey?
Blakey. Oh my God.
Art Blakey.
Oh man. Well, you can't talk about drums without talking about Art Blakey.
Art Blakey had a groove.
Art Blakey is one of the seminal figures in the development of the music. Indescribable. And when you were in the room, you felt it.
Art Blakey is a master of playing ensembles. You knew the way that he was playing it. He was up on the music, not just playing the drums. All the details. In any of those Art Blakey records, the Messengers records, you can hear that.
In his heyday, I mean, he had some of the best players in the world, like beside him, around him.
I was fortunate enough that I was around musicians who understood the history, and they told me that Art Blakey was one of the drummers that I had to spend some time studying. His ensemble, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, is one of the longest running institutions of music. A lot of great trumpet players, saxophone players, bass players, piano players, songwriters all came through that ensemble. So he came on the scene in the late 30s, playing with Billy Eckstine and eventually playing with Charlie Parker, making some of my favorite recordings actually with Charlie Parker. I think the Live at Birdland one with Fats Navarro is one of my favorite recordings of all time.
The forward momentum in his playing was really infectious. Well, Tony Williams said that when he heard Max Roach, that inspired him to work on his technique. When he heard Philly Joe Jones, that inspired him to work on his creativity. When he heard Art Blakey, that inspired him to work on his groove. So I think of this groove of Art Blakey as like you're on the highway. Somehow you got stuck in the left-hand lane and there's a Ferrari coming up behind you and he's not gonna stop. And that's the sensation of Art Blakey's groove. The momentum is so strong. It's not rushing. There's so much conviction behind it that any drummer would benefit from trying to play along with those records.
I was playing a club called Boomers here in New York. I think I was about 21, 22. And I see him come in and he comes walking by the drums and he looks up at me and he goes, "Hey baby, you're playing your ass off." But he gave me that love and it was just something I'll never forget. Just his generosity of spirit and his encouragement.
So I would hear stories from my grandfather about the early days, and then I would hear stories from like Wallace Rooney and Kenny Garrett from like the 80s when they started playing with him. So I used to hear all kinds of stories. Because my grandfather was several years younger than him, he used to say, "Roy, that's my son." He used to say that Roy was his son.
The first time I saw him play, the drums are here and I sat at a table, like a little round table, like right here, just fixed on him, right? And he got up from the drums and came to my table and handed me the sticks and said, "Go on up and play." I'm like, what? He didn't even know that how, maybe he knew that because I was grinning from ear to ear the whole night, just going nuts, And then he said, "Where do you live?" And I said, "Well, I live in Virginia." "Why?" I said, "Because, I just got out of school." He says, "If you want to play the drums, you got to move to New York." And that stuck in my head, like it made a big impression on me.
I was on the same bill with the Messengers. I was playing with Johnny Griffin. So I got a chance to sit on the bus, man, for hours with Art. So I was playing him records, the records that he had made with Billy Eckstine's orchestra. It was amazing to watch him as he was listening, because he hadn't heard that music in a long time. I had just got to sleep, man. And that was pam, 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 pam. Who is it? Go ahead, man, open up the door. He said, "Hey, boo, what's happening? Can we listen to some Billy Eckstine?" I said, "All right, man, come on in." And we sat up there, man, for about another hour or two listening to those records and talking about it. Unbelievable. One of the masters, man.
To my knowledge, he was not the guy that was like watching other people and trying to take from them and it wasn't that. He was very confident in who he was.
All the good ones have emulated Art Blakey at one time or another.
His energy and his spirit was really strong. So Art Blakey was a one in a row.
It's hard to articulate or to quantify his importance to the drum set and to music, but I can just say that he's one of the greatest and he's one of the architects.